a terrible-looking old gentleman. 'Not a bit of it,' he says, 'I won't.' Down I went on my knees. 'Don't say so, don't! Think what you're doing,' I cried. 'It's a matter of life and death.' 'If that's the case, take them,' says he. So up I get, and cut such a bouquet of red camellias. He had a whole greenhouse full of them, lovely ones. The old fellow sighs. I pull out 100 roubles. 'No, no,' says he. 'Don't insult me that way.' 'Oh, if that's the case, give it to the village hospital,' I say. 'Ah,' he says, 'that's quite a different matter. That's good of you and generous. I'll pay it in there for you with pleasure.' I liked that old fellow, Russian to the core, de la vraie souche. I went home in raptures, but took another road in order to avoid Peter. Immediately on arriving, I sent up the bouquet for Anfisa to see when she awoke. You may imagine her ecstasy, her gratitude. The wretched Platon, who had almost died since yesterday of the reproaches showered upon him, wept on my shoulder. Of course poor Peter had no chance after this. I thought he would cut my throat at first, and went about armed, ready to meet him. But he took it differently. He fainted, and had brain fever and convulsions. A month after, when he had hardly recovered, he went off to the Crimea, and there he was shot. I assure you this business left me no peace for many a long year. Why did I do it? I was not in love with her myself. I'm afraid it was simply mischief, pure cussedness on my part. If I hadn't seized that bouquet from under his nose, he might have been alive now, and a happy man. He might have been successful in life, and never have gone to fight the Turks." Totski ended his tale with the same dignity that had characterized its commencement. Nastasia Philipovna's eyes were flashing in a most unmistakable way now, and her lips were all a-quiver by the time Totski finished his story. All present watched both of them with curiosity. "You were right, Totski," said Nastasia. "It is a dull game and a stupid one. I'll just tell my story as I promised, and then we'll play cards." "Yes, but let's have the story first," cried the general. "Prince," said Nastasia Philipovna, unexpectedly turning to Muishkin, "here are my old friends, Totski and General Epanchin, who wish to marry me off. Tell me what you think. Shall I marry or not? As you decide, so shall it be." Totski grew white as a sheet. The general was struck dumb. All present started and listened intently. Gania sat rooted to his chair. "Marry whom?" asked the prince faintly. "Gavrila Ardalionovitch Ivolgin," said Nastasia firmly and evenly. There were a few seconds of dead silence. The prince tried to speak, but could not form his words. A great weight seemed to lie upon his breast and suffocate him. "No, don't marry him," he whispered at last, drawing his breath with an effort. "So be it, then. Gavrila Ardalionovitch," she spoke solemnly and forcibly, "you hear the prince's decision. Take it as my decision, and let that be the end of the matter for good and all." "Nastasia Philipovna!" cried Totski in a quaking voice. "Nastasia Philipovna!" said the general in persuasive but agitated tones. Everyone in the room fidgeted in their places and waited to see what was coming next. "Well, gentlemen," she continued, gazing around in apparent astonishment, "what do you all look so alarmed about? Why are you so upset?" "But recollect, Nastasia Philipovna," stammered Totski, You gave a promise, quite a free one, and you might have spared us this. I am confused and bewildered, I know, but in a word, at such a moment, and before company, and all so irregular, finishing off a game with a serious matter like this, a matter of honour and of heart, and—" "I don't follow you, Afanasy Ivanovitch. You are losing your head. In the first place, what do you mean by 'before company'? Isn't the company good enough for you? And what's all that about a game? I wished to tell my little story, and I told it. Don't you like it? You heard what I said to the prince. As you decide, so it shall be. If he had said yes, I should have given my consent. But he said no, so I refused. Here was my whole life hanging on his one word. Surely I was serious enough." "The prince? What on earth has the prince got to do with it? Who the deuce is the prince?" cried the general, who could conceal his wrath no longer. "The prince has this to do with it, that I see in him, for the first time in all my life, a man endowed with real truthfulness of spirit, and I trust him. He trusted me at first sight, and I trust him." "It only remains for me, then, to thank Nastasia Philipovna for the great delicacy with which she has treated me," said Gania, as pale as death and with quivering lips. "That is my plain duty, of course. But the prince, what has he to do in the matter?" "I see what you are driving at," said Nastasia Philipovna. "You imply that the prince is after the 75,000 roubles. I quite understand you. Mr. Totski, I forgot to say, take your 75,000 roubles. I don't want them. I let you go free for nothing. Take your freedom. You must need it. 9 years and 3 months' captivity is enough for anybody. Tomorrow I shall start afresh. Today I am a free agent for the first time in my life. General, you must take your pearls back too. Give them to your wife. Here they are. Tomorrow I shall leave this flat altogether, and then there'll be no more of these pleasant little social gatherings, ladies and gentlemen." So saying, she scornfully rose from her seat as though to depart. "Nastasia Philipovna! Nastasia Philipovna!" The words burst involuntarily from every mouth. All present started up in bewildered excitement. All surrounded her. All had listened uneasily to her wild, disconnected sentences. All felt that something had happened. Something had gone very far wrong indeed. But no one could make head or tail of the matter. At this moment there was a furious ring at the bell, and a great knock at the door, exactly similar to the one which had startled the company at Gania's house in the afternoon. Here's the climax at last, at 12:30, cried Nastasia Philipovna. "Sit down, gentlemen, I beg you. Something is about to happen." So saying, she reseated herself. A strange smile played on her lips. She sat quite still, but watched the door in a fever of impatience. "Rogojin and his 100,000 roubles, no doubt of it," muttered Ptitsin to himself. End of Part 1, Chapter 14. Recording by Martin Geeson in Hazelmere, Surrey.